Hey everyone. So these are going to be we're going to try to just chug along on taking some notes here by video with me. Um, and then we'll catch up, when we get back all together. But I would really like us to try to focus on these for the next couple days and do some problems. So we've done all of our ratios for sine, cosine, and tangent. Those are kind of the basic ones that we always see. And then let's fill in the ratio as far as x and y. So sine is y over r. But in the unit circle, we kind of just focused on the y coordinate. The cosine is x over r. But again, in the unit circle, we focused on just the x values. And then our tangent was y over x, and we had to use that ratio. But unfortunately, it was always fractions, so we kind of got to memorize some of them. So what we're going to look at now is we're going to look at the reciprocal functions, and the reciprocal function means just that. We're just going to flip the value. So the value meaning, if something's 1/2, and we want to find the reciprocal function, we'll just actually make it 2 over 1, depending upon which one we're looking at. So the reciprocal of sine is cosecant. So if that's the reciprocal, then it's going to be r over y. And then if we're looking at secant, that's the reciprocal of cosine, we're going to be looking at r over x. What we're looking at here is the cotangent now, and the cotangent is going to be equal to, let's get that, 2x over y. But the easier way to think about it, since it is a reciprocal, is cosecant is 1 over sine of theta. The secant is 1 over cosine theta, and then the cotangent is 1 over tangent theta. And that's going to help us make things much more quick. I have the first quadrant done here. Here's all of our tangents, like I was saying. So now let's look at a problem. So the first problem we're going to look at is a cotangent of negative 240. Wow, we'll start off difficult, I guess. Let's figure out where we are in the unit circle. So we're going to be going clockwise because it's negative. So I'm going negative 240. So I'm going here. Well, that's negative 90 when I'm going this way. Negative 180. All right, then I'm thinking, well, how many more? Yep, I'm going all the way over here to negative 240. Negative 240. Just about like where we've spun. If you're like, oh, I don't know, let's remember that if we're going in a positive degree, we could think of, well, I know 240 going in the positive degree is halfway around, and then 1, 2, 3 marks over. So going negative, we're going halfway around, and then 1, 2, 3. All right, there we go. So let's put our tangent here. And remember that our tangent for 60 degrees is square root of 3. So here our tangent is square root of 3. But in this second quadrant, it's negative. So if that's usually our tangent, then we're going to do the reciprocal. So if our tangent of negative 240 is, oh, let's not do an arrow, let's do an equal. If that's equal to negative square root of 3, and we can think of it over 1, then the cotangent of negative 240 degrees is going to be 1 over the square root of 3. We can't leave it like that, so we need to rationalize it. And to rationalize it, if you have a radical in the denominator, just multiply the top and the bottom by it. And that's going to take this out of the bottom. So we'll have negative square root of 3. And if we figure out the bottom, well, that's just 3 there. So that would be our cotangent of negative 240. All right, let's look at another one. Let's figure out where I am. Let me erase this here. I'm going to use our unit circle to do this next problem. And let's clear our ink. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're going to find the exact value of each trig function. Well, now we're doing secant of 180. And we can see that the secant of 180 is over here on the x-axis. And the secant of any angle is equal to 1 over the cosine of the angle. So if we're looking at the secant of 180, we're over here at 180. And secant deals with cosine, which is the x, so I have the x circled. So that would be 1 over whatever the cosine of x is, cosine of theta, so we have 1 over -1. That equals -1. Let's look at this next problem, which is the cosecant of 330 degrees. So let's find our 330 degrees. 330 degrees is right over here at 11 pi over 6. And depending upon what we're looking at, either the x, the y, or if there's a cotangent, we'd look out here at our tangent values. So the cosecant of 330, well, cosecant of any angle is equal to 1 over the sine of the angle. All right, so let's look at the cosecant here. Well, that's our y, because sine is y. All right, so I'm looking at the cosecant. Oh, cosecant. Let's write that again. Cosecant of 330 is 1 over the sine, which is -1/2. But here's our fraction. So I want to change this to look like 1 over 1. Let's change that into a fraction, times -2 over 1. And that just ends up being -2. So we have a lot of fraction work here. Lots of, manipulating these fractions. Let's look at another one here. Let's clear our ink. Oops, I want to move my unit circle. There we go, to find the cotangent of 30. All right, well, 30 degrees is easy for us to find. That's just here. All right, so we have x, y, and my cotangent value here is square root of 3 over 3. We know that. So let's look at the cotangent. Well, cotangent, so it's always good to think about, what are we taking the reciprocal of, which function? So it's 1 over tangent theta. So I know I'm thinking about tangent, so that's what I'm grabbing. So if I'm looking at the cotangent of 30 being 1 over, well, what's the tangent of 30? It's this, so 1 over that. So let's change it. 1 over 1 times, we're taking the reciprocal here because we're multiplying by that instead of the division. So when I go ahead and calculate this, I have the numerator over the denominator. But we can't leave this square root down here. So let's rationalize it. The square root of 3, you have to multiply that by the top and the bottom. So I have 3 square root of 3 over 3. That ends up just canceling out to the square root of 3. And you'll notice that the tangent here of 30, and if we take the cotangent, we get the cofunction up here for it. And if we were to take the cotangent of 60, we're actually going to get what the tangent of 30 is. So hopefully that makes some sense for you. Let's see what's on our next pages. Let's see. Oh, you know what? I'm actually going to get rid of that particular graph. And let's see if we can do it without. All right, so we have the cosecant of -60. So let's figure out where negative 60 is. That's down here, negative 60 degrees. And let's see if we can come up with what those points are. All right, well, our x is 1/2, and our y is square root of 3 over 2, because anything with a reference angle of 60. And since we're down in the fourth quadrant, we have our negative y and our positive x. All right, so now let's think of, all right, well, cosecant of any angle is 1 over the sine of the angle. So that means that the cosecant of negative 60 degrees is going to be equal to 1 over, well, whatever the sine is. So negative square root of 3 over 2. Again, we'll do 1 over 1 times 2 over the square root of 3. All right, well, if we flip that and multiply, we have 2 over the square root of 3. Can't have that, so square root of 3 over the square root of 3. It's the same steps most of the time. So in the denominator, we just have 3, because square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. And we have 2 square root of 3. And we can't forget that this was negative, so let's push that along. All right, let's try one more, and then we can do some to practice. Here's the cosecant of 315. So 315, oh, we're down here as well. And 315, remember, I think that has a 5 over here, is our 45-degree reference angle. So I might put that in 45 degrees for a reference angle. And I know that the values here for the x and the y are square root of 2 over 2. That's easy for any of our 45s. So cosecant, well, the cosecant of 315 degrees is 1 over the sine of 350 degrees. And here's the sine, it's the y value, and it should be negative. So that's going to be 1 over negative square root of 2 over 2, which is going to end up being 1 over 1 times 2 over the square root of 2. So negative 2 over the square root of 2, square root of 2 over square root of 2, rationalizing it just as I did the same. So we'll have negative 2 square root of 2 all over 2, but those cancel, so I'm left with negative square root of 2.